This week on ANN, an Adventist university in India celebrates its 100th anniversary.
Adventist humanitarians launch a project to combat food insecurity in Madagascar.
And productions for Hope Channel's Project Hope in Papua New Guinea set a new record.
These stories and more coming up.
This is ANN, a service of the Seventh-day Adventist World Church. Thanks so much for joining us this week.
First in the news, thousands recently celebrated the centennial anniversary of an Indian university with a focus on mission. During the 5-day anniversary celebration of Spicer Adventist University, more than 500 pastors, administrators, and community members heard a message of the importance of compassion from the Seventh-day Adventist Church president, Ted Wilson. According to the Adventist Review, the university used the event to praise God for its growth and to reflect on its humble beginnings as a school for Bible workers and literature evangelists. Spicer is located in the Indian state of Maharashtra and has more than 1,100 students.
The Adventist Development and Relief Agency in Madagascar this week launched a project to address the practical needs for thousands in the nation. ADRA is partnering with Land O'Lakes International Development and the association Intercooperation Madagascar to combat food insecurity for more than 264,000 people. The ADRA program, entitled Asotri, will run for the next 5 years and is funded by the U.S. Agency for International Development. Asotri means harvest in the local Malagasy language.
One of the largest production initiatives for the official broadcast network of the Seventh-day Adventist Church is currently underway in the church's South Pacific region. In Papua New Guinea, producers, directors, and videographers for Hope Channel, together with volunteers, are working to make 300 half-hour television programs in 1 month. The initiative, called Mega Project Hope, aims to serve as the foundation for Hope Channel to air on the island nation. Leaders of the project are soliciting prayers and anticipating miracles. The Mega Project Hope sent this report.
Mega Project Hope has come to Papua New Guinea, and it is endorsed by our national head office.
Jesus challenged us with a great gospel commission to go, to preach, to teach to all nations. Hope Channel has placed a high priority on the importance of contextualizing our message, of preparing TV programs for the local people. And we have now come, the time has come for Papua New Guinea. We are thrilled as a global network to be able to gather some of the technical experts that we have, to bring them here and to participate in the first ever Mega Project Hope. The time is here. We are here. We invite your prayers. Now meet our team.
We want to use our media skills in a mission experience.
And Mega Project Hope
is providing an excellent opportunity for which we are thrilled to be part of.
Every exciting story has its first chapter. In every family, the arrival of a new baby is met with joy and happiness. We welcome Hope Channel to Papua New Guinea and encourage you to pray and be part of Mega Project Hope.
An Adventist university recently received 2 donations that will fund student scholarships and endow a chair. Last week, Andrews University in the U.S. state of Michigan announced it received major donations totaling more than $10 million. According to the Adventist Review, Douglas Benson, alumnus of Andrews and a retired physician, gave the university 405 hectares or 1,000 acres of lakeside and woodland property. The land is expected to generate $8 to $12 million in proceeds from property development and hardwood trees. The money generated from the land will fund student scholarships. Meanwhile, the Adventist Health System, based in the U.S. state of Florida, donated $2 million to endow a new academic chair for healthcare administration in Andrews School of Business Administration.
The Adventist Development and Relief Agency in Sierra Leone is helping to operate a home decontamination program to prevent the spread of Ebola. According to ADRA, the initiative is the only one of its kind in the country. Decontamination teams are spraying homes and replacing infected mattresses and bedding in neighborhoods on the outskirts of the nation's capital. ADRA Sierra Leone has decontaminated nearly 1,000 homes since November. The agency is running the program in conjunction with the non-governmental organization Plan Sierra Leone. Infected materials removed from the homes, including mattresses, bedding, blankets, and mosquito nets, are taken to a designated dump site run by ADRA staff and military personnel from Britain and Sierra Leone.
Coming up, celebrating 100 years of Adventism along a famous foot trail in Papua New Guinea.
I think prayer means connecting with God and listening to Him and Him listening to us.
Prayer means just talking to God like I'm talking to a person.
Sometimes we don't always hear what He's trying to speak to us, but we need to listen, and we also need to speak to Him and be true with Him, and prayer is a time to do that.
Death is the only inescapable, unavoidable, sure thing. We are sentenced to die the day we're born.
Death is a debt we all must pay.
Some people are so afraid to die that they never begin to live.
Every man must do two things alone. He must do his own believing and his own dying.
Death is not a period, but a comma in the story of life.
He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away.
So I was reading The Great Hope, and I came across a phrase that says, "It is the law both of the intellectual and the spiritual nature, that by beholding we become changed. The mind gradually adapts itself to the subjects upon which it is allowed to dwell." It struck me how much in this chapter and the things it talks about, so much in our world tries to distract us. If it can be focusing on bad things, focusing on anything but God's goodness, His law, His word, Scripture, and just how much we need to be making sure our foundation is sure and that we are founded on Christ. Verses John 17 says, "This is life eternal, that we might know you and Jesus Christ whom you have sent, and that in that we have hope."
Welcome back. And now for more news from our global church community.
Nearly 6,000 people attended the 100th anniversary celebration of Adventism along the Kokoda Track in Papua New Guinea. The track is the most famous in the nation and is known for a battle that was fought between Japan and Australia during World War II. Record in Focus has more.
For 12 days, the celebrants enjoyed programs on the theme of Tracking to Gloryland. 5 flame runners, grandsons of the original pioneer missionaries, spent 3 days carrying torches from the south end of the track to Efogee. Local politicians and church dignitaries also attended the celebrations. By the Second World War, the Christian message had transformed the people living along the track. Most of the villages along the southern end of the track are majority Adventist.
In December, hundreds of people in Taiwan had a chance to experience what Bethlehem was like during the time of Jesus through an interactive experience. Students of the Taiwan Adventist International School transformed their campus to create an event called Walk Through Bethlehem. Students dressed up as shepherds, shopkeepers, Roman soldiers, and Joseph and Mary. Organizers of the experience hoped the 500 people who took the journey through the campus gained a renewed appreciation for Jesus' birth.
When a nursery in London closes for the Christmas and New Year holidays, volunteers transform it into a homeless shelter known as the Advent Center. The Evangelistic Center is affiliated with the Central London Adventist Church. This past Christmas season, the shelter hosted 113 guests. In addition to providing guests with food and a place to sleep, volunteers offered daily devotions, TB screenings, massage therapy, haircuts, and health screenings. Guests also had access to fitness equipment, a game room, and a movie room. Volunteers also gave various workshops, including one that assisted guests on how to find accommodations when the center closed. Although the shelter is temporary, homeless ministry for the area doesn't cease when the holidays end. Community service teams from various Adventist churches continue outreach initiatives to the homeless all throughout the year.
And finally in the news this week, it's not too late to sign up for the free GAIN 2015 conference hosted by the Communication Department of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The annual meeting brings together technology and communication professionals with the aim of collaborating ministry and technology efforts. This year's conference will take place online from February 11 to 15. Topics for the conference include cybersecurity, gamification, and managing IT projects on a budget. You can register for the conference by signing up for the electronic mailing list at gain.adventist.org. When the conference begins, you will receive links to view the live stream of the presentations and live question and answer discussions with a panel of experts. You can also learn more about the topics that will be discussed during GAIN by visiting facebook.com/GAINCon.
Still ahead, learn about a new version of Facebook that's ideal for people with limited internet access.
But up next, find out what's in the newest edition of the Adventist World magazine.
We were a group of women outside the city gate by the river at a place of prayer. Lydia, a dealer in purple cloth from Thyatira, was also there. 2 men came along and started to speak to us and asked to join us in prayer. We later learned that they were Paul and Silas. The Lord opened Lydia's heart to heed Paul's message. She and all the members of her household were baptized. Another day, Paul and Silas were on their way to a place of prayer. They were met by a female slave who had a spirit in her that could predict the future. She earned a lot of money for her owners by fortune-telling. She followed us and shouted at us. This was disrupting, and so Paul ordered the spirit out of her. When her owners realized that their chance of making money was gone, they dragged Paul and Silas to the authorities, and they were put in prison.
At around midnight, these 2 very positive prisoners named Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God. The rest of us were listening to them. Suddenly there was a violent earthquake, and the prison shook. All the prison doors flew open and everyone's chains came loose. The jailer woke up, saw all the doors open, and drew his sword to kill himself. He thought all the prisoners had escaped, but Paul assured him and shouted that he should not harm himself. The jailer called for lights, rushed in and lay in front of them, trembling. The jailer accepted Jesus Christ, and his whole family was baptized.
I found it really interesting that the record, the scriptural record, talks about God speaking the universe into existence, but it specifically uses the word formed. And when I first paid attention to that, I realized that God was sculpting. He was the first sculptor on this earth, and he didn't just sculpt the outside, he sculpted every nerve cell, every component of the body as he went along. So I'm totally inspired by the fact that God saw fit to bend down to the earth and use the clay that I now use, or some form similar to it, lovingly formed every aspect of it and thought about it and decided, this is what I want, this is how I want it done. And that's kind of what I do, and that connection is just awesome.
Welcome back. Kim Moran shares a preview of the latest issue of Adventist World Magazine.
The February 2015 Adventist World Magazine has lots to offer, from news to inspiration. I'm going to mention a few articles to you that you won't want to miss. First, the cover story by Ben Bogus is entitled Opening Prison Doors in Kenya, and it's the incredible story of how Adventist chaplains have been assigned to each of Kenya's 107 prison facilities. It is also about how Adventists from outside Kenya and the Kenyan musical evangelism group, the King's Messengers, have worked together to make a difference in the prisons. In only 10 years, the Adventist presence and ministry in the Kenyan prison system has made a profound impact. And then, in a companion piece, read some of what Ellen G. White had to say to inmates in an Oregon prison. Another article that caught my attention was Annie by Nathan Thomas. It is about one of the first Adventists, Annie Smith, who, at 23 years of age, had contributed 45 poems to Adventist periodicals. In 2 years of church work, she established herself as an artist, poet, songwriter, and editor. Many still sing her hymns today. And one last thing, remember to check out our news section, Bible column, Bible study, and idea exchange. This is where readers get to see content from other readers, among other things. And be sure to visit us at www.adventistworld.org for informational and inspirational articles.
For this week's social media report, Angela Taipei shares a preview of a new version of Facebook and explains some of Twitter's newly announced updates. As our use of social media changes and advances, new needs arise in the platforms themselves. Twitter and Facebook recently announced updates to their apps. One of the biggest features on Twitter is increased video capability. Before, the only way to share a video on the Twitter platform was to share a link to the video that was on a YouTube, Vimeo, or Vine channel. Now you'll be able to shoot, edit, and share video clips up to 30 seconds long directly on the Twitter app. Just compose a message and click as if you were going to take a picture, and then just click over to the video button to select the camera instead. You can hold to record for a few seconds, and then you can even stop, flip the camera around, record a few more seconds, and then you're done. And tweet. Hopefully, this will give you just one more way to share what you, your family, your church, or your organization is doing. Twitter's second new feature is Group Direct Messaging. Now you can message up to 20 people in a private space. Just go to Direct Messages, enter the names of those you want to contact, press Next, and start typing your message. So if your ministry's volunteers are all on Twitter, you now have a way to meet them where they're already at by starting a private group message. With over 1.39 billion active Facebook users, the platform continues to look for ways to grow. They recently announced the rollout of Facebook Lite,
in hopes of facilitating the use of Facebook with those with limited and inconsistent internet connections. The app, which currently is only available on Android in select countries, hopes to further facilitate the spread of information technology around the world. So if you are planning to spend time in Bangladesh, Nepal, South Africa, Sri Lanka, Sudan, Vietnam, or Zimbabwe, give Facebook Lite a try.
For our final installment of our New Year's resolution segments, Dr. Narita McKibben sat down with ANN's Joel Nuttallaputty to share how you can maintain your health goals throughout 2015 and beyond.
Many people make goals to be healthy in the new year. What sort of realistic goals would you recommend they set?
Well, you know, I think it's important to be active at least 4 days a week. Maybe 2 days at the weekend, a couple of times during a busy week, and you're going to be in that habit pretty quickly. And then eat lots of veggies, drink plenty of water, and spend time each day with God.
Okay. My second question, what are your top 3 tips for maintaining a healthy life?
I'm going to borrow an adage from Dr. David Katz, feet, fingers, and forks. Feet, be active. Fingers, don't smoke. And forks, watch what you eat. Be mindful of eating a healthy diet.
Sounds good. Okay, my next question. What do people do to sabotage their health goals?
You know, I think it's a big thing is they set unachievable goals. They look at the ideal and they go, that's where I want to be, forgetting that they're way back here. And so setting unachievable goals is not a good thing. You want to just set goals that you can achieve. Moving along, we always want to be progressing. Then we put off things from today and say, oh, we'll do it tomorrow, but then tomorrow never comes. And we make excuses for not doing things today.
You're right, you're right. My last question is, what can people do to make sure they meet and succeed their goals of healthy living?
Well, you know, studies show that if we write down our goals and say our goals to ourselves every day, we're much more likely to achieve them. And so it's just keeping them in the forefront of our minds. So write it down. It can just be on your laptop or, you know, wherever. Write it on the fridge if you need to. But just write it down and speak it because you're saying it and hearing it yourself. And then another thing is to be mindful. Be mindful about what you're eating. Focus on your food. Don't focus on the screen. Don't focus on, you know, TV or whatever. Just focus on your food. Chew well, you're going to eat less because we often overeat. And then monitor yourself. We know that monitoring is important. So be mindful about, know what your blood pressure is, know what your weight is, and monitor it. Maybe use a pedometer. Know what your cholesterol is. Be mindful about how much sleep you're getting, what time you're getting to bed. And so that mindfulness in every aspect of your life is very important. And then ask yourself, is everything I'm doing bringing glory to God? Because our bodies are His temple.
For the first time in session history, delegates will be able to use an electronic device to cast their votes during the 2015 GC session. Myron Isminger has more.
Well, technology impacts our lives in many ways, and so we also are continually looking for ways to improve our systems for the General Conference session. Most of our viewers may recall a card like this that the delegates have used in the past, and when there was an important vote, they would lift the cards to show whether they were for or against. Well, beginning with this General Conference session, we will switch to an electronic voting device like this. And there are a couple reasons that we're doing that. One is that it's very time-consuming, if it's a close vote, to physically count each of the votes, the cards, or if it's a secret ballot, even more consuming, counting each one, and it's not as accurate. There's room for human error. But also, I think we're very concerned that each person will prayerfully vote their conscience. And in some cultures, there's an issue between voting your conscience and also the cultural norm of showing respect to your leader by following, if you know that they have a certain conviction. So we want it to be transparent and fair, and I think this is a great step forward.
Now let's turn to Benjamin Baker for a look at Adventist history. This week, learn about the ministry of 2 female Finnish evangelists during World War II.
Welcome to This Week in Adventist History. During this week, in 1965, Elsa Luukkanen and Aino Lehtoluoto, 2 Finnish female evangelists, held a month-long revival in Bronx, New York, just one stop on a nationwide tour. As a young girl growing up in Finland, Luukkanen had an irrepressible desire to minister for the Lord and started out as a Bible worker and literature evangelist. She led Aino Lehtoluoto to Jesus through her personal efforts, and the two partnered in ministry. In 1939, when Finland became embroiled in war with Russia at the start of World War II, almost all of the Adventist ministers were compelled to serve in a non-combatant capacity. Refusing to let the work of God flag because of the missing men, Luukkanen approached conference leaders about running a public meeting. Request granted, Luukkanen and Lehtoluoto's meetings were so successful that they were urged by the leaders to hold more. Combining preaching and singing, the women brought hundreds of souls to Christ in public meetings, and at the war's end, instead of going back to house work, the dynamic team continued doing public evangelism for more than 3 decades. In those years, they traveled the world over, much sought after as revivalists, oftentimes holding meetings where there was no Adventist presence. The women had to raise money themselves. Some of their campaigns ran for 5 months, attracting thousands from all walks of life. Their programs frequently appeared on television, sometimes the first time Adventist programs had been aired in a given area. In the end, Luukkanen and Lehtoluoto were responsible for baptizing more than 700 souls and raising up multiple churches. And that was this week in Adventist history.
Thanks for watching ANN. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
In the meantime, join our global conversation on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can connect with other Adventists worldwide through more stories, photos, and videos. Visit Facebook/Adventist News, Twitter/Adventist Church, and Instagram @Adventist Church.
Our good news for this week comes from James chapter 1, verse 5. The passage says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you."
That's our program for this week, and remember, you can always visit news.adventist.org for daily news and videos. Until next time, God bless.